Donald Trump's months-long fraud trial, the civil trial in New York, came to an end, one of 6 trials involving the former president. He delivered remarks today in court in his own defense, taking aim at the New York Attorney General and the judge who was judging the case. Eventually, the judge instructed Trump's lawyers to, quote, control your client. Of course, being ordered to control their client was not a problem outside of the courthouse in front of the media.
They don't have any facts. They don't have any evidence against us. Millions and millions of pages, years of litigation, and all politically motivated. She campaigned on "I will get Trump." If you've ever seen any of her clips, they're horrible clips. Actually, the anger. She's got serious Trump derangement syndrome.
New York Attorney General Letitia James wants a $370 million penalty against Trump and his companies, and to oust Trump from his own company and ban him from doing business in New York. With us now, a guy who knows a thing or two about trials as a politician, former governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. I think we should say up front you were pardoned by President Trump, so there's a few feelings there that we put out. But I've been interested in your comments on this because I think you see and you saw in your mind what happened. What happened to you is the canary in the coal mine, both with the charges against Donald Trump and the investigations into Hunter Biden, something that is dangerous.
Well, it's very dangerous. I would say that this is the greatest constitutional crisis we've faced in America since the Civil War. The weaponization of prosecutors, the politicization of the courts to be used as political weapons, partisan weapons to destroy leading candidates from either party. What they did to me, a Democrat governor at the AAA level, they're now doing at the major league level to a Republican president. And the big problem is it's destroying our democracy. And it was never intended to be this way. The prosecutors, in this particular case, the Attorney General running on a campaign, promised that she would get Trump if she gets elected. The irony is that she's one of those rare politicians who's actually keeping her campaign promise, but she's doing it at the expense of the rule of law. She's butchering the interests of justice. She's undermining democracy and public trust. And the irony is she's selling out the people of New York because she's supposed to be the people's lawyer, looking after the little guy, but instead she's pushing the interests of the big banks and the big insurance companies. It's ironic and laughable, but unfortunately it's very dangerous, and our country's in big trouble because this is communist-style politics that the Democrats are doing. And I should point out to your listeners, I was a twice-elected Democrat governor, the first governor in America to endorse Obama. And I see what they're doing to Trump.
Would you say the same
what
thing?
Republican prosecutors did to me. I'm sorry?
Would you say this is the same thing? Would you say it's the same thing with what's being done to Hunter Biden and by extension to the demands to look into Joe Biden?
I think the demands to look into Joe Biden and chase after his son is similar, but not nearly as egregious as what they're doing to Trump. I don't like the idea that all of a sudden a man becomes president of the United States and they start investigating his son. This is the new ugly politics in America today. But what they're doing to Trump now is never been done before, and the magnitude of it, and the unfairness of it. And none of the cases against him are remotely criminal. And the irony is the people that are doing it to him are the ones who arguably are violating rules, violating laws, and certainly violating the intention of what our founders expected for our country, and that is that we, the people, choose our leaders. You don't like Trump, vote against him. You don't like me, vote against me. But don't hijack me from office.
Can't two things, be true at once? I know. I'm thinking if two things can't be true at once, right? We put up the calendar of the court cases against Donald Trump, and then also the primary calendar, right? The federal classified documents trial, for example, in other cases, and what he did allegedly in Georgia in some of the phone calls when he was calling and saying you need to find votes. Doesn't there have to, can it both be that these are politically motivated and the people should choose, but also there has to be some way to hold elected officials who do the wrong thing accountable?
Well, yes, of course, and there are corrupt politicians. And I don't want to prejudge Senator Menendez, but when you find cash in a senator's house, hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash in gold bars, I think that's probable cause to think that there's some corruption going on. That sort of stuff ought to be prosecuted, certainly investigated. But this sort of thing that you talk about, the Georgia case, if that's a crime, then those of us who were Democrats back in 2000 who believed Bush didn't win and that Gore won, they should prosecute us and maybe throw me back in jail. I hope they don't get any crazy ideas to do that.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.